Nestled in the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean lie two havens of vitality, Crete and Sardinia, cradles of the famed Mediterranean way of eating. A titan of heart health science once mused that this dietary pattern often basks in a glow of praise that borders on poetic. But does it truly hold the key to a longer, fuller life? The sea's ancient recipe. The Mediterranean Sea laps against the shores of over a dozen nations, yet the essence of its celebrated diet harks back to a snapshot of life on Crete, captured decades ago. In the wake of global conflict, a team of researchers, invited by Greece and backed by a renowned foundation, descended on the island to probe its post-war pulse. What they uncovered was striking. Heart disease was a whisper on Crete, striking men at a rate 20-fold lower than across the Atlantic. Cancer, too, was a rare shadow, and death itself seemed to tread lightly. Leading the charge was a scientist whose name once graced soldiers' meal packs, launching a sweeping study across 7 corners of the globe. The secret? A diet woven from over 90% plants. A verdant tapestry that left little room for the rich meats savored daily by Crete's elite, whose health told a different tale. At its core, this eating style shuns the heavy hand of animal fats, spotlighting. Instead, a bounty of roots, leaves, and grains. Yet over time, even in its cradle, this tradition eroded. Within a generation, Crete's heart disease surged as flesh and cheese crowded out the old ways. Today, the Mediterranean diet is more myth than practice, evoked in name but muddled by visions of oozing pizzas or meat-laden pastas. Restaurants may trumpet its virtues, but their plates often serve a shadow of its truth. If so few live it, how can its power be measured? Clever scales emerge to weigh how closely people cling to this plant-rich relic. Points pile up with every bite of greens and dwindle with each slab of meat or dollop of dairy. Predictably, those tilting toward this ancient blueprint fend off heart woes, cancers, and early graves more deftly than those gorging on modern fare. The Mediterranean approach shines against the backdrop of richer diets, no doubt. But any path paved with whole plants and sparse in animal heft could joust with society's top reapers. Decades of studies tracking thousands reveal a clear arc. The closer one hews to this style, the longer the lifeline. Between those nibbling at its edges and those fully immersed, a gap of 2 years in lifespan yawns. It's an elixir for graceful aging, too, warding off frailty's creep. What fuels this shield? A grand synthesis of research points to a trinity. More fruits and vegetables, less meat. Curiously, fish, the lone animal heralded here, casts no protective net. Skeptics have sharpened their pens against the diet's pioneers, a clamor fueled by scribes chasing clicks or coin. Yet the ledger of science stands firm, dismissing such barbs as hollow or worse. When a trailblazer of this field, on his 100th turn around the sun, was asked if his plate paved his path, he offered a sage nod. Perhaps, but the proof's still baking. Another luminary echoed this at his own century mark. A torchbearer until his 102nd year flickered out in early 2022. The golden thread of olive oil flows through this diet like a river, dressing legumes and leaves in a sheen of tradition. To distill its magic, scholars turned beyond the sea to vast troves of data from nearly 100,000 souls tracked over decades in America's health studies. Swapping a mere teaspoon of creamy fats, think butter or mayo, for olive oil trims heart risk by a modest 5 to 7%. It outshines saturated foes, but holds no edge over its oily kin. Critics of fat once waved a study linking all oils to Artery scars, yet a fatal flaw unravels their case. See hearthealthinsights.org for the twist. Olive oil nudges cholesterol down and eases vessels compared to butter, but even its purest form can briefly pinch arteries, much like a burger's grease. Other oils, palm, soy, sunflower, likewise tighten the pipes, unlike nature's gentler. Fats from nuts or avocados, dubbed pure gifts for their unspoiled bounty. Pair olive oil with a salad's crunch, though, and its sting softens, a harmony lost in the salty bite of olives themselves, too briny for daily fare. To weigh fats head-on, a grand experiment unfolded. Thousands split into trios, one boosting. Nuts, another oil, the third unchanged, tracked for years. Who would thrive? Shark, the Great Divide, Predimidin. Spain's sweeping Predim trial, over 7,000 hearts at risk were cast into 3 camps. Dive into the saga at predimidinsights.org. One swapped modest oil for a lavish 4 tablespoons of virgin gold daily. Another doubled nut nibbles to an ounce. The third rolled on as usual. Spanning 4 years, the findings landed in a top journal. A hiccup surfaced in 2018. Some households skewed the random draw, yet it touched only a sliver of the flock. Recalculated, the core truth held. Nuts halted artery thickening, while oil stood neutral, and the unchanged thickened still. Strokes plummeted, down a third with oil, nearly halved with nuts, slashing a decade's risk from 6 to 3%. Scaled wide, that's 85,000 fewer strokes yearly in one nation alone, all from a handful of almonds and kin. Meat and dairy stayed steady across groups, so cholesterol and heart attacks barely budged, 30-odd in each camp. Yet nuts, beyond strokes, tied to fewer early exits overall, while oil offered no such grace. The diet's father saw oil as a stand-in, not a star, best for ousting lard's reign. The Virgin Edge pre-dimed crowned extra virgin oil king, pressed pure, it keeps olives' gifts intact. Refined oils lose this spark, swelling with toxins like 3-MCPD, a shadow 25 times darker than in virgin drops. Yet deceit runs rife. Of 88 bottles tested in one state, just a third proved true. Top names faltered, 3 in, 4 flunked, leaving purity a gamble. Lion's lasting echo. The Mediterranean tale wavers under scrutiny. More reviews than roots, tangled by shaky math and 34 rival scorecards. Some laud potatoes, others shun eggs. Nuts and oil often star, sparking cries of fat-fueled bias, though public funds anchor most probes. Flawed works slip through. One trial's data, gnawed by termites, crumbled under doubt. Yet, the Lion Diet Heart Study stands tall. 600 post-heart attack souls split. Half got no nudge, half embraced a plant-leaning diet with canola's omega-3 lift, mimicking a lost walnut wealth. Canola trumps olive oil on cholesterol and artery ease. The plant shift cut meat and creams, not fish or wine, yet in 4 years, heart attacks plunged from 44 to 14, slashing yearly odds from 4 to 1%. Still, 14 attacks lingered, a dent, not a cure. Another tale offers sharper hope. 198 gravely ill switched wholly to plants. Of 177 who held fast, just 1 faltered, a 0.6% risk, while half the 21 strays met grim ends. Unrandomized, yes, but its 100-fold gap echoes lands where heart ills vary 20-fold. A 70% drop from Lion's tweak could save legions. A 99% plunge could rewrite fate.